you know this, I'm a baseball coach. And so at the beginning of the season, we do this thing called the draft. So if you're like over the age of 8, you got to enter into a draft. Like if you're under 8, you don't have to worry about it. You get put on random teams. But if you're above 8, you got to try out. And so I'm one of the coaches, so there's the draft. And so all the coaches do it differently. And so like there's a scale 1 through 5. Like if the kid gets a 5, that means he can hit the ball, he can catch the ball, he can throw the ball. Like this is a stud baseball player. Pick him up. If the kid gets a 1, don't pick him up. That means he can't even throw the ball. He's striking out at all the balls. He's having trouble just catching a pop fly, and it's just like, and then they have an area you can write a special note. And so like, what I'll write, like if the kid can't really play and he needs to be playing a different sport, I'll write on a special note, "No way, Jose!" exclamation mark. That means don't pick up the kid, no matter what. Don't pick up that kid. I'm not trying to be mean. I want to pick up good kids. I want good kids on my baseball team so we can win. But you know what's interesting? God's not like me. He picks up all the ones. He goes after all the people that you least expect, and he wants them to be on his team. That's what this Bible passage is saying. He picks the most random people, the least expected people, to follow him. Maybe he's calling you. Maybe he's calling me. I want to give you a brief history of the Bible. Because if you look at the Bible, God calls the most unlikely people to do his will. Look at the life of Moses. Moses, he used to stutter. He wasn't a good public speaker. He was afraid, and he had anger issues. Anybody here have anger issues? Don't raise your hand. Anybody afraid to talk in front of others? Public speaking? Raise your hand. So Moses saying, "What? Don't call me. Call Aaron. Call somebody else, not me." But God called Moses to free a nation. The Jews were in captivity for over 300 years, and God called Moses to be the man to rescue his people from slavery. Look at the life of Jeremiah. Jeremiah was a young kid. He said, "I'm just a youth. You can't call me." But God called a youngster to become a prophet. Look at the life of Matthew. He was a tax collector. Back in those days, and even still today, people, how many of you guys like the tax man? How many of you guys look forward to April? How many of you guys are glad April's over? We still haven't filed our taxes. Come on, Sherry. And so they hated Matthew. Why? Because he was a Jewish tax collector. He worked for the Roman Empire. He was despised. But Jesus said, "Matthew, come follow me." Look at the life of Lady Gaga. Oh wait, she's not in the Bible. But the woman at the well, she was called to follow Jesus Christ. And guess what? She was married not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times, but she was married 5 times. In today's age, we'll call her a hoochie mama. But God called the woman at the well to follow her. To follow Jesus. Jesus didn't follow her. She followed Jesus. See, Jesus calls the most unlikely people into the ministry. Look at the life of Mary Magdalene. She had 7 demons. She was a demon-possessed woman. Have you ever met a demon-possessed person? If God could save a demon-possessed woman, she had 7 demons, and Jesus cast out those demons, and she became a follower of Jesus Christ. Look at the life of Mary, the mother of Jesus. She was a teenager, and she gave birth to the Son of God. God calls the most unlikely people to follow him. Maybe God is calling you. Look at the life of Isaiah the prophet. He said, "God, don't call me. I'm a man with unclean lips." Maybe he had a potty mouth. I don't know. And he says, I live among people with unclean lips. How many of you guys hear people use foul language every day? Use God's name in vain. I work at the school. I was sharing with you guys last week. They say you can't talk about God in school. That's not true. The kids talk about God every single day. GT! Jesus in a negative way. I swear to God. I hear the kids talk about God quite a bit in school in a negative way. Not too often in a positive way. But Isaiah's like, don't use me. I'm a man with unclean lips. But God called Isaiah to be a prophet to a nation. Look at the life of Peter, a fisherman. Anybody like to fish around here? He was a fisherman. Just an average Joe. God still calls out average Joes like you and me. And he says, hey, come follow me. And we'll change this world together. And Peter became the rock of the church. He became a leader of the church. See, God didn't call like somebody that graduated from Harvard, somebody with a great education. He called a fisherman to be a leader of the church. Look at the life of Paul. Paul says, like, I was premature. Like, he says, I was born at the wrong time. I barely made it. And then he goes on to say this, for I am the least of the prophets and do not deserve to be called an apostle because I persecuted God's church. Jesus called a God hater. You guys know any people that hate God? It would be like today, God calling an atheist, someone that doesn't believe in God, hey, come follow me. I know you don't believe in me, but I believe in you. And so, Jesus calls Paul, who hates church people, and he's like, come follow me, and we'll change the world. See, I believe God has a calling on your life. God has a calling on your life. God has a calling on your life. God has a calling on my life. But the question is, will you listen to the call of God when he starts speaking to you and calls you by name? He always calls individuals out by name. Will you listen to the call of God or will you ignore the call? God must be talking to the person next to me. God must be talking to the person behind me. No, God's talking to you. He's calling you. Will you listen to Jesus' voice this afternoon?